Good afternoon, everybody. Great to see so many of you here. I'm Johannes. I'm the Managing Director of cxomni, and today's topic is Roadmap to Customer Centricity, a structured approach. And this is a topic I'm really happy to talk about. And this session is really designed to help you get from talking about customer experience to really operationalizing customer experience, because that's something I've seen a lot of organizations struggle with over the past couple of years that I've been involved with this topic. So just some practical things for you. This webinar will take around 40 minutes, so we can leave some space for your questions in the end. Simply use the Q&A functionality here in GoToWebinar or drop some questions directly into the chat. I will try to come back to them at the end of the webinar. If I can't do that, I will follow up with you after the webinar directly. So why do we need to talk about this topic? I've seen a lot of organizations struggle with this topic in the past years. Customer experience is really a extremely complicated topic, and especially journey management can be a super efficient methodology, but we need to do it right. Before we deep dive into the topic, into the maturity model and maturity assessment, I want to give you a quick introduction of cxomni, of who we are. cxomni is the leading provider for customer journey management. We've been named journey mapping leader by Forrester. We have 5-star reviews on basically all the big review platforms. And what we're trying to do is really to combine all the different elements of customer journey management into one platform. So we have your more traditional kind of customer journey mapping, where we help you visualize customer journeys. We also have things like journey analytics, where we bring in metrics, data, KPIs to not only have that qualitative perspective of your customer journeys, but also bring that quantitative perspective to it, so that you are really able to derive next steps, actions, calculate ROI on certain initiatives. And speaking of that, we also help you driving that action forward in your organizations. So we have a specific module designed about actions management, insight management, orchestrating knowledge in your organization. And then last but not least, obviously, AI is a big topic, especially in customer experience, where we're dealing with tremendous amounts of data. AI can just make our lives so much easier. It's not taking the decision away from the individual. It's just helping us to take decisions faster or take decisions better educated. But I mean, I don't want to sell you a tool today. This is really the only time I'm going to mention anything software related. So let's really deep dive into the topic. 2025 has probably been the craziest year I've experienced so far. The level of speed and uncertainty last year has just been mind-boggling. And this involves a lot of different topics. And yes, AI is one of them. AI has to be mentioned in every single talk, but it's not all of it. It's not even near all of it. We have topics like digitalization, AI, obviously, automation, but also acceleration and unpredictability. And unpredictability in so many different senses. We have economic unpredictability. We have technological unpredictability. We have political unpredictability. So navigating in this environment as a business just gets so much harder and so much more complicated. And then we as people in CX, we also changed with very conflicting kind of priorities. So there was a big economic pressure on companies at the moment. I think everyone here is aware of that. So we are tasked with two very conflicting topics. On one side, it's increasing complexity and conflicting requirements on the cost pressure side. So each and every one of us is tasked to reduce costs, to bring down costs, to increase efficiency. But then on the other hand, we are still asked to drive innovation, to drive customer satisfaction, customer-centered innovation forward. And bringing those two things together is just so extremely complicated. And we need to find a way how we can actually make that work for organizations and how to create a structured and customer-oriented approach. And then we haven't even talked about the customers themselves. It's changing expectations everywhere. So how do we actually adopt? We need a customer-oriented learning process, not simply an annual survey, an annual retrospective on what's happening. And bringing that into an organization is another challenge for itself. So what you're seeing on the screen is basically how most organizations are structured. Most organizations are built functionally in functional teams, silos, and so on. And this actually makes a lot of sense. You want to make sure that each function is as efficient as possible, knows its job as efficient as possible, and can do it as optimized as possible. But customers don't think in functions. Customer experience a company, an organization, a product as a whole. So you're not simply looking at using a product, but you're basically buying a product. So you're in contact with sales and marketing. You're using the product. So you're in contact with development, product, service, and so on. You might need support at a specific point of time. And then you also want to renew depending on the kind of product. So this journey always goes horizontal across all those different functional silos in your organization. And that's basically what we can think of as journey management. Journey management is basically the discipline of adding a bridging function between all those different silos in the organization, creating transparency and enabling cross-functional experiences. Historically, what happened then in this regard was a lot of like traditional market research. Traditional market research comes with a lot of flaws. So think of this as your annual satisfaction survey. You send a big survey, you send a CSAT campaign, NPS campaign once a year, measure something, but this isn't really painting a good or clear picture of what's going on in your organization. It's just measuring satisfaction at a very specific point of time. So all you're basically looking at is retrospective data, and deriving real insights from it is extremely difficult and extremely slow. And I mean, I've just talked already about the speed of change that we're currently faced with. So running a survey today might produce a certain result, but the customer expectations might have completely changed over the course of those 12 months. So you're not measuring anything that happened in between. You're missing all those small pain points which might appear and pop up throughout the user journey, throughout the experience with a company. Measuring things is important, but we need to find a good system of how to measure it constantly. So instead of basically a annual report, we need a system that enables continuous steering, that enables continuous learning, because this is really what journey management is about: continuous steering and continuous learning. So we discover something, we need to give it into development, we need to roll it out, we need to make it productive, then we need to measure again, then we again need to derive learnings from it, and send those learnings back to your product, to your development team, so that we are in this constant loop of improving the customer experience, which then brings us really to the core principles behind customer journey management. A customer-oriented learning loop. That's it. I've mentioned the word customer experience management quite a bit, customer journey management quite a bit. So let's just briefly look at a definition, or my definition, of customer journey management. Customer journey management is a management discipline focused on the planning, design, and continuous optimization of an organization's target group journeys. Two words matter here: management discipline and continuous optimization. What we're often faced with is that everything customer journey related is treated as a workshop method. Journey management is not a workshop method, it's a management discipline. We need to make it operational and we need to make it continuous, which brings us to the next topic, continuous optimization, meaning learning, deciding, acting, measuring again, learning again. We really need to understand what our customer's experience is and then translate that experience into decisions and actions that actually improve that journey. And this is basically what journey management is about. It helps us, but not just us as CX managers, the whole organization to look at something from the customer's perspective. And this is the difficult piece of it, because if we're in a workshop and building up a customer journey, we're looking at it from our internal perspective. The customer might have a completely different view on a given journey, not having that internal bias. So removing that bias and try to make it as objective and external as possible is really what helps us make customer journey management efficient. So let's try to look at customer journey management as the operating system of your customer experience, and hopefully as the operating system of making your business, your organization successful. Because in the end, we're all dealing with customers. There is not a single business in the world that isn't dealing with customers. And our main objective should always be not being cost efficient, not being having the greatest marketing team, but in the end, it all comes down to delivering the best value for your customer as efficient as possible. So the question is now, what does this actually enable in practice? Once we establish a proper journey management practice in our organization, what does this allow us to do? Mainly and primarily, it helps companies and organizations taking well-educated and fast decisions based on what their customers are thinking. Having that continuous monitoring, continuous loop in place really helps us to take every single decision in the organization with that customer perspective in mind. It doesn't need to be always the preferred choice of the customer, but always having that customer experience and customer's perspective in mind. It also helps us to connect different departments through transparency. You will be shocked if you're talking to people from different departments, especially departments which aren't close to the customer, what kind of perception they're having of what customers expect. And just creating that transparency will already make a big leap forward in how you deliver products. But on the same time, it also fosters customer-centric collaboration. So if everyone has the same understanding of what the customer wants, you can actually work towards that goal. What we're often seeing in bigger organizations is that every single function has their own objectives. So you're sometimes even working in opposite directions. So putting the customer first helps really bridging that gap. You can deliver consistent touch points. We're working a lot in the financial services and insurance industries, for example, and those are very, very, very complex products, complex companies. And just an example that I was faced with recently. So my health insurance and my car insurance sits with the same company, but both products are organized in completely different business units. So when I had some claims with my health insurance, it was all like super smooth. It was easy to hand things in, to get clarification on certain topics. But then for the car insurance stuff, I had to download a completely different app. I had completely different counterparts I needed to talk to. So it just felt like I was basically dealing with two different companies, which makes total sense if you're looking at how those companies are structured. But that's not what I want to feel as a customer. I want to feel like everything is being delivered from one perspective, from one organization, and not from different business units in the same company. Um, but it also helps point out these financial dependencies and synergies. If you're only looking at your function at your silo, you're really focused on how can I make my work as efficient as possible? How can I deliver the best results for my team? But often you have those cross functionality synergies. So if function A does this, this will happen with function B. If you improve touchpoint A, this will have an effect on the complete opposite end of that journey. And being able to point those things out, to figure those things out, will just help you building better business cases around your customer experience initiatives. And last but not least, having continuous monitoring in place just helps you acting faster, acting so fast that you can actually resolve topics before they impact your business outcome. If you're just measuring something one time a year, it might have already caused 11 months of damage. So having that continuous monitoring process in place just will make a big shift forward. We're going to have a look at the journey management maturity model in a second. Just a short disclaimer here. The maturity model itself has been developed by the Experience Leadership Club, hosted by Ulf Schubert. So if anyone German speaking should be in the audience, I really recommend reaching out to the Experience Leadership Club or Ulf. It's a great group of people who are regularly sitting down discussing UX and CX topics. They're all coming from different companies, different practices, but all have the same goal in mind. And they sat down together and developed the baseline for this maturity model. So everything you're going to see in a second has been developed by the Experience Leadership Club. What we did at cxomni is basically turn that model into a practical assessment that you can do, and that will give you specific actions, specific recommendations, and next steps of how you can get from a lower maturity to a higher maturity. The journey management maturity model is structured into 9 different categories. And in order to really build an efficient journey management practice, we need to take care of all those 9 different segments. Not at once, step by step, but all these 9 elements will be important when building that journey management capability. In the beginning, the Experience Leadership Club sat down and asked themselves, okay, how do we actually make journey management successful? And the questions they asked themselves is, how did we start? What worked? What came next? What didn't work? What caused failures? And basically, it was a huge chunk of data, responses, and so on. And out of this data set, they basically established these 9 different dimensions. So what we're looking at is not something made up. It's actually a collection of best practices. So most important topic number 1 is awareness. If you're the only one in the organization who knows what journey management is, I'm sorry to say that, but you're not going to be successful. We need to make sure that we have a company-wide of business unit-wide, depending on the setup, understanding of what customer journeys are, of what customer journey management is. And it might always seem super obvious to all of us, but it isn't to someone in engineering. We need to have the right methods and structures in place. How our journey is created, how our journey is structured. So Forrester, for example, has this journey atlas model. There are thousands of different models out there, but just find something that works for you. Try to set certain standards when working with journeys. Try to establish certain methods as a baseline. Having comparability is a huge advantage. And if every team, every business unit just does their own thing, it's just much harder in the long term to really measure and showcase success. And then as well, you need to think about, okay, what are actually the roles and skills in contact with customer journey management? And customer journey management is not something you can study, at least not as far as I'm aware. So you need to think about, how do we skill people up? How do we enable different functions, different people to really participate in this journey management practice so that we can improve our organizations, our company's customer experience? And this is also about the topic, who owns what, who's responsible for something. And responsible doesn't just mean who is responsible for putting something into a system, but who is actually responsible for driving outcomes. Who is responsible for making sure that this journey is actually improved? Once we've done that, we have a really solid baseline. So the next kind of stuff we need to think about is insight generation. Journey management is not putting up nice posters. It's not putting up a flip chart and putting some sticky notes on it. We really need to think about, how do we derive insights from those journeys? How do we update journeys? How often do we update journeys? What kind of data goes into a journey to be able to derive insights from it? So all these things need to be considered, but then also what needs to be thought about is, how do we get these insights to the right place? So just logging insights is not going to help you either. You need to find someone who actually takes action on those insights. Processes, another extremely important topic. And on this process topic, we can actually look from two different perspectives. So there is that internal process perspective, because every single customer journey always translates into at least one, normally dozens of different business processes. So if I'm buying a product, there might be like three different processes be involved. So we need to think about, how do we actually translate things back and forth between that process world and between that external customer journey, customer centric world. So we always have that internal and external perspective that we somehow need to bring together. Otherwise, ain't gonna work. But we also have our internal CX processes. And I briefly touched this on the methods and structure already, but we need to think about, okay, how do we actually get from A to B? How do we move our journey management forward? What's the processes of updating things, of keeping things relevant to certain departments and functions? So on the process side, we have those two different perspectives that we need to consider when thinking about it. And then dimension number 6 is tools. It's not dimension number 1. Buying a tool is just going to cost you a lot of money if you don't have all the other dimensions in place. So this really only works if you're taking care of all the other remaining eight dimensions. Otherwise, the tool is just going to be a waste of money. But we're going to have a look at tools and architecture in a second. And last but not least, we have things like strategy and budget. Who actually pays for initiatives? What's the ROI you need to show on certain initiatives? Who takes responsibility? Is there someone from the executive board sponsoring your initiatives, which always obviously is a tremendous accelerator of your journey management activities? But also, what's our governance structure? So when you're rolling out journey management into a larger organization, it's very hard to steer everything from a central customer experience or journey management team of 5, 6, 7 people. So we need to think about how do we enable the rest of our organization, but also how do we govern those things going forward so that we don't need 150 CX managers in an organization, but still deliver great results business-wise and customer experience-wise. Last but not least, my favorite topic. I'm a mechanical engineer by profession, so I love numbers. And I mean, this is not my quote, but I like to quote it. You can't manage what you can't measure. And this is 100% correct in customer experience. Customer experience is still a relatively new field, and you're going to be faced with a lot of obstacles rolling these things out internally. So having a solid baseline of making arguments for your initiatives is going to be a game changer. You need to know what metrics are you connecting to your journeys. What outcome do you try to produce? How do you calculate ROI on your initiatives? And this can really be the biggest game changer, helping you to roll out a successful journey management practice in your organization. One topic that people tend to underestimate, tremendously tend to underestimate, is the technical backbone. Without data, without systems, without structure, this is not going to work. What you're seeing here looks pretty complicated on a first glance, but it's not that complicated. It just still takes a bit of time to operationalize this and roll this out into your organization. But when talking about customer data, we obviously need to start with consent management. We need to have a legal basis to collect customers' data. So that's something we need to take care about. We have the measurement side of things. So we need a customer feedback management system. This can be your typical VOC survey kind of platform. There are also dozens of public channels where you can collect data from external review platforms, forums, threads, and so on. So there are tons of different channels that you can use to get feedback from your customers, again, heavily depending on what kind of product your business is selling. And then we also have the behavior tracking kind of element. So how is a customer actually using my product? What steps is he taking through the website when ordering products? How is he behaving in certain situations? So understanding that is also going to be a huge benefit. We need to normalize these things. We need to somehow structure these things. Sadly, in the internet, especially when people feel anonymous, there was a lot of not so nice things being said. So making sure that this is filtered out is always a good idea. And only then we move things into our journey management tools. And journey management or journey tools can be all in one tool, like with cxomni. You can have different tech stacks for this. This is really up to how you want to structure things. But we have our journey mapping component to it. So really focus on visualizing things. We have our dashboard components helping you to continuously monitor things. We have the journey management aspect of it, where we really think about the management of those journeys, initiatives, insights, improvements, pain points, and so on. And then also things like a research repository, for example, can be pretty relevant, but again, heavily depending on what your business is doing. It's important. You don't need all of this on day one, but you need a proper roadmap of how to get from A to B, and the journey management maturity assessment is going to help you build that roadmap. Once we have everything in place, we can also start measuring the health of our journeys. This might sound simple, but it's not that simple. So if you're looking at this journey, this might look like a fairly even distribution between good and bad experiences. And I've often seen people just taking the average of it. In average, this journey is in okay health. But that's actually not the case. Journeys don't behave like averages. Humans don't behave like averages. You can have phases of that journey that feel very positive and other phases that feel very negative. The negative parts might often dominate the memory and behavior of a customer, but also just certain phases of your journey have a certain importance. So if I'm buying something and something expensive like a phone, I'm buying a phone, and the buying experience is shit, but the usage experience afterwards is great. It might not be that relevant that the buying experience was shit, because I'm really satisfied with the usage experience. So we need to think about the balance of positive and negative experience, the value that each phase of the journey creates versus the effort that it imposes on the customer, on the user. So quick takeaway is look at journeys in phases and identify individual pain points and opportunities per phase, not just add everything up, build the average and say, okay, this journey is doing okay, because this is not what the reality looks like. And if you're thinking, okay, we have already journey maps in our organization, we started mapping them out, let's just run a quick reality check of where your organization really stands. Because according to Gartner, every third company that creates journeys struggles to use them efficiently. Meaning 33% of companies investing in journey management are basically wasting their money. And this might even be more distributed in organizations. Certain business units might be using it efficiently, some others aren't, but it gives you a general sense of how difficult it really is to roll out an efficient journey management practice, because these people aren't stupid. It's just extremely difficult because it involves so many different functions, so many different people in your organization. If you're just relaunching an engineering process, only one function is involved. That's much simpler than changing something cross-functionally, because this requires buy-in from so many different teams, so many different stakeholders. So let's run a quick, simple self-check. Do you have real journey management? So I'm going to give everyone a couple of minutes to think about these topics, but just start asking yourself, do you know, and does your organization know? That's even the more important question. You might know, your organization might not know which 3 customer journeys have the biggest impact on your business success. Not only look at yourself, look at your organization. For those journeys, are there named owners with clear accountability? Owner doesn't mean who maps it, who puts the data into the system. Owner means who owns it, who is responsible for driving outcomes, who is responsible for driving things forward. Does each of those journeys is equipped with 2 or 3 clear outcome-based, not activity-based KPIs? And are you able to, for at least one of those journeys, really calculate an ROI and show a KPI that improved due to the initiatives you took on that journey? That's obviously the hardest one. But I'm not going to ruin your day. Even if you're in the 0 to 1 area, this just means there is just a lot of room for efficiency gains. everyone talks about customer centricity, but I mean, you can see it. Often it's just customer journey management is just putting posters somewhere. There was no focus on key journeys, missing standardization, unclear responsibilities, no relevant KPIs. And sadly, it's often considered as a workshop methodology instead of really a management discipline. You can create beautiful posters. In the end, it will just end up in a drawer if you're not really managing it, if you're not making sure that action is taken. So, how does the journey management assessment work? Why is an external assessment so important? It's the same as when we're looking at our own customer experience or our own products. Looking at it from that internal point of view is always a bit biased. Your customer might perceive your product completely different. That's the same with where you stand in journey management. Having that external unbiased view just helps like establishing a neutral perspective. And we can also provide some benchmarking, if you like, comparing you against companies from your industry, just showing you what others are doing better, or where you are doing better. But it also removes sugarcoating from the discussion. I mean, I'm going to give you an honest answer if you're asking me, but internally you might always be a bit careful due to politics and kind of stuff. What can I say? What can't I say? Having someone external doing an assessment just removes that completely. In the end, and that's something for you to think about, doing an assessment like this is not about getting a good score. It's really for you to find out what do you need to do next? What do you need to focus on? Where are your weaknesses? So getting a good score isn't necessarily something good. It's basically wasting your time. You need to be honest, and as you really want to find out where you are so that you can establish a journey management roadmap going forward. Ideally, if you're doing the assessment with us, you're gonna get it's free, by the way. You're not going to charge anything for it. There is a QR code in the end, so just wait for the last slide. But ideally, you should bring for the assessment like 3, 6, 5, 4, whatever amount of people, not only from your function, but again, having that broad picture is extremely valuable instead of just looking at a single perspective. So bring different people, different functions who are somehow in touch or involved with the journey management approach you're going to spin up. Journeys run horizontally as well needs our perspective on this. The assessment itself is going to be a structured discussion along these 9 central dimensions that we've looked at earlier: joint evaluation and discussion, some reflection by us, and reference cases if you like. But the most important topic about this is don't come alone. Bring other functions so that we get a wide enough picture as possible. What happens afterwards? It's not just a discussion. You're getting a document. You're getting a handout, 5, 6 pages, depending on the results, that ranks your overall maturity on these 9 different disciplines. So you're going to see this like spider web, which you're seeing on the right side of my presentation, that gives you your overall ranking across those different dimensions. But we're also trying to give specific recommendations of what to do next per dimension, but also taking into account your overall maturity. So telling you that you need to put a tool or a governance structure in place when you don't even yet have the roles in the organization doesn't make sense. So when initiating next actions, we not only need to look at the individual dimensions, but at the overall picture that we are faced with. With this document, with the results of this assessment, you can really use this as an external reference to drive management rounds forward. Having something on paper, having something externally validated helps getting budget, getting buy-in for initiatives, but it also helps you to build out those couple top priorities that you can focus on in the upcoming month or years, again, depending on your organization. And this really is going to be the baseline for your customer experience and journey management roadmap. This result is a starting point for the joint prioritized journey management roadmap. And joint, again, this only works if this assessment not only reflects your own opinion, but if it reflects your organization's opinions. Use the maturity assessment to really focus on a couple of key dimensions. You're going to fail if you're trying to change the world all at once. Take things step by step. Focus on the topics that you can actually move forward without launching a major program. Examples is start out by defining that journey template, establishing a taxonomy, name sponsors for certain things, establish a core team which takes on responsibility for rolling out that journey management practice. Establish certain guidelines, how-tos, set up a certification program for journey managers internally. So there's so many small things which really can make a difference going forward. And yeah, that's basically all from my side for today. So just wrapping things up, journey management is more than just mapping. It's a management discipline and it's the steering framework for your customer experience. A maturity assessment, especially an external one, will help you create clarity and get alignment on where you actually stand. Scores don't matter, results matter, and you're only going to get good results if you're being on the right people and if you're being honest about where you stand. Start small, win big. Don't try to change the world on day one. And same here, think incremental steps and really try to establish that journey management roadmap. On the right-hand side of the screen, you're seeing a QR code. That QR code will take you to a registration page where you can just sign up for the maturity assessment. I would be more than happy to see some of you doing that assessment. It's always fun to joining those calls. So looking forward seeing you there. As I said, if you have any questions, I'm just looking at my other screen, just drop them in the question Q&A feature of the tool. So there is a question about how do I identify the right stakeholders in my organization to start building this capability? That's a good question, especially in this customer experience context. You need to find people who are willing to cooperate. Try to identify small use cases where journey management might be effective. Take a very, very small journey, not a overarching journey, and try to see if you can find people who are buying into that strategy, and then build things up and build things bigger step by step, and really like showing successes, proving that this can actually make a difference, and then spinning it up bigger and bigger in your organization. I can't see any other questions at this point of time anymore. So if you should have anything, you can always reach out to me via email, via LinkedIn, drop us a message on the website. But first of all, I want to thank you for your attention. It has been a pleasure with you. Have a nice rest of your Thursday, start to your Thursday, depending on where you are. And see you soon, guys.